Good evening, everyone, and welcome to PCA's Garage. This is Tech Tactics Live, episode 41, and tonight we're going to be talking about paint protection film, or PPF. A couple of housekeeping items. We want to make sure we thank Pirelli, our sponsor of Tech Tactics Live, and actually the sponsor of tonight's episode is actually SunTech paint protection film. I also want to thank our local member, Peter, who brought out this beautiful 2020 718 Spider that has also been wrapped, and we will also take a look at that a little bit closer later. And then also want to thank the folks over at Europros Collision for donating this fender, in which we'll be demonstrating on for tonight. Be sure, if you enjoy the episode, please like, subscribe, and if you're watching live tonight, Wednesday, please comment in the live chat area. We're taking questions from the live chat, and if you want to know something, I'll be scanning with my laptop here as well as with my phone. Tonight, I'd like to introduce our guest, Chai Thodkiert. He's been doing PPF for 11 years. I think I've known you for 11 years. I consider him like the master when it comes to applying paint protection film. So when we thought about doing this video, you came to mind. So welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Chai's the owner of Mod Automotive. Like I said, has been doing it for 10 plus years. Paint protection film. If we go back to the 80s, you know, back in the day, protecting our paint with cars, you looked at these sort of vinyl covers that you would put in. This one is actually, I believe, a factory Porsche one that goes to the nose of a Boxster. And I still think these are pretty useful for temporary purposes. If you're driving to an event during the day and you just want to make sure you don't get some major stone chips on the hood. But I certainly wouldn't recommend these for long term, just because, you know, dirt can collect under here, moisture can collect, and it can actually, as you're driving and it vibrates, it can actually score or make a mess on your paint. But paint protection has come a long way, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We've got a fender here. This is not a Porsche fender. It's I think it's a Lexus fender that our buddies at Europros gave to us. But let's throw up the agenda and share with folks what we're going to be talking about. So tonight we're going to hit what's the difference between a vinyl wrap versus paint protection, what's the differences in prices as you look to get your car done in PPF, the difference between pre-cut PPF versus freehand, what's better, self-healing. You hear this term a lot when people talk about the quality of their PPF. Ceramic coating, we've talked about ceramic coating. Is ceramic coating as good as PPF? Is it, there's actually, I think we're going to be talking about PPF that has ceramic coating in it. And more importantly, the reason why Chai's here is how to choose an installer. And how do you inspect your installer's work? What are you looking for? So Chai, we've got a lot to go through. I'll try to keep track of everything, but as I spoke to him before we did the show, all this stuff is in his noggin in here, and he'll just throw out some stuff that should definitely impress you guys. And again, I'll be watching the live chat, so if you have specific questions. So tell the viewers the difference between just your standard vinyl wrap versus PPF.
All right, so vinyl wrap is just what you would see here. It's just a color wrap. There's no protection that it offers. Maybe just a little bit, but nowhere near as paint protection. It's only mainly for aesthetics, just to change the color of your car, or, you know, covering up your chrome trim or stuff like that. Paint protection film, it is meant to preserve your paint. If you're driving along, if a rock comes up off the road, it protects from that, from it chipping your paint.
So vinyl is about like 1 mil, maybe 2 mils at the most.
Yeah,
And paint
at the
protection
most.
films like 7, 8, 9
Seven-
maybe?
Yeah, about 8 mils.
About 8 mils. And you can certainly, Damon, if you come close, you can tell the difference here. Like there's very little lip on vinyl versus, now this is just a temporary wrap that we have here that's very thick, but then also this more permanent style wrap here. You can tell it's definitely much thicker than vinyl. And therefore, that also obviously affects how it protects the paint, longevity of the vinyl, and I'm assuming how easy or easier something like this would be to install versus the PPF.
Oh yeah, so the concept of installing the films between vinyl and PPF, it's almost similar, but a little bit different. Vinyl is a dry install, PPF is a wet install.
Yeah. So this piece is, we talked about this vinyl being sort of like the 80s, 90s version of paint protection. This piece here is a temporary piece of vinyl that can be applied if you're going to the track or again, just temporary use. This has very visible, Damon, you can come a little bit closer here. This has very visible channels for, I guess, releasing the air bubbles?
Yeah. So this temporary track film is temporary. It's a dry application. So all the little lines, channels you see there, that's for all the air to escape out. It's the same thing for vinyl. Vinyl has that as well on the back side.
But
that's all in the adhesive.
But because of those channels, it makes it easy. So a random person like myself who's not a pro that wants to install it temporarily, you get most of the air bubbles out, and the channels are huge. Therefore, you don't get the bubbles. When you go to a more professional piece that's a long-term solution,
you see none of that.
You see none of those little channels. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, actual PPF actually does not have any of the air release channels at all.
Oh, so that makes it even harder to apply.
If you're doing a wet install, it's a lot simpler, but
dry,
you won't be able to do this dry.
Okay. Now talk about the adhesive side of PPF versus a vinyl. Are they just as tacky or?
So it is just as tacky, but vinyl, the way that vinyl is made, it's not meant to last long. You'll probably get a good 2 years. If anything after 2 years with vinyl, consider yourself you get your money's worth.
Yeah.
Paint protection film is engineered to actually last at mostly, 10 years, 12 years? So it will actually last. Now, the adhesive, when you go to remove either of those two, vinyl, you're going to have somewhat of a trouble after 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
PPF, it should come off cleanly and easily within the 10 to 12 years range.
So PPF is also engineered for the removal.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's PPF and vinyl for that matter has been around for a long time. If you think of the Woody wagons, that was vinyl on the side of those cars, and it's been around for a while. And paint protection film, I remember back in the day where you would just do like a third of the hood because maybe it wasn't, I don't know, why was it just a third? Was it cost? Was it?
So back then when the film was in its infancy stage, the film was a lot thicker. So doing a whole bumper or a whole fender or a whole hood was very difficult.
Okay.
So even though it was beginning to be engineered for automotive use, it was still tough to work with.
Okay.
Whereas now, today, the film that's much easier to work with is much more engineered. You can virtually cover a whole car, and it'll be so clean looking.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it seems as though because of the warranties of these films, they must have engineered them to last longer and stay clear longer. Because if you look at the early paint protection films that are thick, they yellow, they crack, they look pretty gross.
They'll yellow, they'll crack, they'll start peeling up around the edges in a matter of no time at all.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the major things about the difference between a wrap and PPF. Oh, the other thing was we're talking about color as well. And so obviously if you want to do a color change, vinyl wrap, or you do, you've seen those cars with the advertising, vinyl is the way to go. And PPF traditionally has been primarily clear. But then you started seeing they did like a satin look or a matte look clear.
Yep.
But now at SEMA, they're introducing
A color PPF.
Color PPF. So
Yep.
now you can have a color, but it's not the 1 to 2 mil, it's the protective
It's the
8
full
mil.
8 mil paint protection film that is colored. So if you had like a white car and you want to change the color, but you want to protect at the same time, and you don't want to use vinyl, there's paint protection film that's colored that could be for
So
you.
that's an option now, because a couple years ago
Yep.
that wasn't an option.
Yep. So right now there's limited colors, but I'm gonna say maybe in a year or two you'll see many more colors become available.
Yeah. So just quickly we were talking about how far film has come over the past couple of years, and you've been doing the installs. Like, does the clarity, or as an installer, when you're stretching the film, has that changed? Like, how
Oh, yeah.
easy it to
Oh yeah,
use?
it has definitely changed. When I first started, the film was, at that time, was easy to put on, but compared to what it is now, every time I look at my old work, I can't believe, I'm like, how did I used to do this?
Yeah.
How did I do this?
Well,
Yeah.
you still amaze me when
Yeah.
you're, and we'll talk about installations and how he's so precise with stuff. So let's talk about the price difference. If our members that are watching, or non-members that are watching for that matter, if they're considering PPF for their car, the reason for the difference in prices.
All right, so mostly the pricing, it depends on where you go and where you live. So in certain spots, you might find prices for a whole car up in $10,000 worth. But if you go to another place, another area, it could be $4,000 or $5,000. It all depends on the shop and your location.
Oh, so you think competition drives down that price as well?
If there's more competition, the price will come down. But at the same time, some shops, they charge even a lot more. And then it also is how good the install is. Some shops, they don't do paint protection film specifically. They offer it, but they'll charge less. But there's other shops that primarily does it, they'll charge more for it. They do a better job.
Right, so one is like a specialty paint protection shop versus one that is like an added service to their car, mechanics offerings or something like that.
Yep, so those can factor into the pricing as well.
And then,
also-
and then how much you get wrapped on your car, right? So,
Oh, yeah,
so we
definitely.
were talking about earlier, an inexpensive install back in the day was you just do a third of your front hood, which to us now looks terrible, and hardly anyone ever does just a third of a hood. So now you're talking about, are you just doing a front bumper? Are you doing just the hood and the bumper? Or are you doing bumper, hood, fenders? And in the case of this 718 Spider, which we'll get closer looks later, Chai actually wrapped this car. And I challenged our staff here earlier to whether or not this car was wrapped. But this car is wrapped completely, from top to bottom.
Yep.
So the price differences will be obviously how much you're getting wrapped,
Oh, yeah.
the type of shop, the environment, competition, but also the materials they use. Like
Yeah.
price, as a buyer of paint protection film, there's got to be a wide range of price ranges to choose from.
Yeah. There are certain brands out there that are not very good quality, and there's other brands that are very good quality, and that plays a big factor into the pricing as well.
Right, exactly. And then there's also probably the least expensive way to do it. Like I know there are pre-cut kits that you can get like on eBay or maybe even Amazon, where if you typed in Porsche, Boxster, paint protection film, like they will send you a kit almost where it's been pre-cut. There you go. There's a photo there where it's been pre-cut. And then if you're adventurous, you can try to put it on for yourself. For those of you that have ever tried to do window tint, I mean, a small area, I could see someone trying to attempt that, someone that is very budget conscious. I can see that, why that might be attracted to them, but I can tell you it's not as easy as it looks.
Oh yeah, it is definitely not as easy as it looks. I've even had customers that have bought these pre-cut kits offline. They'll come to me and be like, can you install this for me? I've tried it myself and I couldn't get it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that brings us to our next topic, which is pre-cut versus freehand.
Freehanding.
So as a dealer of certain paint protection films, I'm sure you're able to buy software. And I saw you got this, like, I guess I can say, can I say how much you paid for that printer? Because you posted it, so
Oh yeah,
it was like a $7,000 printer.
Yeah, it's a $7,000 plotter.
Plotter. Okay. So these, again, you can buy these pre-cut kits, and then are some installers or shops that actually subscribe to a service so that they get the latest templates, and then they can use this plotter to print out, what they need to use on a specific car, which is definitely a helpful tool. But there's sort of the next level from there.
Yeah, so it depends on the customer. So if you do it with a pre-cut kit, so the way they have designers now, it's perfect the way it is. It's industry perfect. But now if it comes to the owner, there'll be certain things that a pre-cut they won't like about. That's where freehanding comes in. So pre-cuts, it speeds up the install. It can make a lot of installs look very clean, very neat, without any, without me taking a blade to your paint.
Right.
I'll explain that later. So pre-cuts makes everything easier. So now when it comes to freehanding, that can cover a lot of things that pre-cuts don't.
Right.
So,
and so just as an experience, I know there's been times where I think we have a photo of one of our members' cars where they had a pre-cut kit installed on the front of their 993, and you can see that there is a seam line right at the front of the headlight. And to some people that might be okay, but knowing Chai, I showed it to him, I was like, Chai, would you have done pre-cut here, or would you have shown the headlight? So there's a headlight right there. So you can see the seam right on top of the headlight washer there. Now, if Chai were to do that car, he would do a single piece and make it so that it doesn't have a seam.
Oh yeah, I'll try to avoid seams as much as possible. Putting a seam there makes the install easier. A lot of times it's up to the customer. I'll mention to the customer about it if they don't mind the seam. But if they don't want the seam, I can avoid the seam as much as possible.
And to back up to when we were talking about the price difference, taking someone's the amount of time to do a pre-cut kit to have it finished like that is going to be less time, I would think, than you doing it where there's zero seams, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of tugging, heating up, and manipulating the film to make sure that it can lay down and be seamless.
Yeah, a lot of labor does go into it, depending on the car, depending on the panel. The more difficult panels, yeah.
Yeah, and then also, with regards to pre-cut kits, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the pre-cut kits, if we can show the edge of these bumpers, Damon, on the 718, a pre-cut kit, the way Chai wraps this, when you go to the edge of that bumper, like it actually goes over the edge of the bumper and it gets like tucked behind it. So you don't see a line there. But pre-cut kits, do they allow for that sort of wrap over, or does it stop short of the line?
So now this is the part where a lot of shops comes into play too. So if they have a software for the plotter machine to cut pre-cut kits on the spot, now new softwares you can modify the patterns to fit how you want it.
Okay.
So now some shops, they don't take the time to modify it to do such.
Right.
They'll just cut it as is, and however it goes on is how it goes on.
Right.
But if they modify it, yeah, they can have all the edges be tucked into the seams. So
and again, that goes along with the price differences.
Well. Yep.
If you do a pre-cut kit and that kit stops short of that seam, you don't have to take off the bumper, right? So if you want to tuck, that means you've got to loosen the bumper, you've got to take it out, you got to clean behind it. Again, that adds time, adds money, but the result is definitely much different.
Yeah, it'll be a lot cleaner look in the end.
All right, so let's talk about other places where you've done freehand, which amazes me. I don't think I have a photo, but one time you were doing the edge of a trunk, and again, in my mind, I thought you were just going to go and print out a piece that belonged to that car, and then apply with your squeegee there and throw it on. But you actually went and just grabbed like a scrap piece that was probably rectangular or something like that.
Yep.
And you sprayed and you placed it on that car, and you literally took this little tool and you just went, bzzz, bzzz, and it came out
Perfect.
factory looking. And that's again, when you talk about price difference and who to go to, someone that can just freehand a beautiful curve to match what you need. That's the kind of person you're looking for, especially if they're working on your Porsche. So anyways, let's talk a little bit. I know we're going to talk about self-healing, but since I'm holding this tool, this is your moneymaker, so to speak.
This is my money maker. So a lot of my work I do freehand because I'm doing mostly whole fronts or whole cars.
Mm-hmm.
Without this, I'm virtually almost nothing.
But the thing is, this is a tool that you can get this from Amazon. It's just a
this is just
a quality. It's a quality blade.
Quality knife. Yep.
And you can. I think this is a Japanese make that you can get from Amazon. What's it
this
called?
is Alpha.
Alpha?
Yep. Alpha.
Okay, Alpha. And you can get replacement blades, and as they dull, he just breaks off and starts. He's always got a fresh blade.
Yep.
So it's always nice and sharp. And the reason being, and let's try to do this, because this is where it's important, because anytime you're taking a blade to the surface of any car, let alone a Porsche, this is where you want someone that has an amazing touch. So can we cut this one, or should we lay down a new one and cut that?
No, I should be able to.
All right, so I'm going to cut a piece. I'm just going to trim off this area here. Oh gosh, sorry, fender. Okay, we're going to leave it there, and then you cut your piece.
All right.
Okay, so I can already hear the difference between your cut and my cut. Now, if we left this on the car and move this away, let's see the piece that I cut. Oh boy. Okay, so let's say I've worked on your car. That looks great, right?
Yep.
But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you remove that film, let's remove this. Oh gosh, here we go. Oh man.
Probably have to hold this edge.
So you got your cut there. Okay, so your cut is coming. But oh my gosh, look at this. I cut into the paint. So I cut into the paint, right? Now Chai's line is still straight, just as straight as mine. But look at this. My money is Chai did not. This is live TV, folks. Nothing more nerve-wracking than that. Look at that. Chai did not cut into the paint. So, very important. That is, oh, sorry if I moved the camera. That is all experience.
Yep, that's all.
That is all experience. And I mean, you could actually hear the difference when I was cutting versus when you were cutting. And again, that's also very important. You know, maybe even we'll talk about, you know, choosing your installer a little bit later, but man, you see just that. Oh, now I've got a permanent, got a permanent mark on that fender. Sorry, Lexus fender. All right, so we also want to demonstrate, we hear about this a lot with paint protection film. It's called self-healing. So earlier today, we installed this piece right here. Before we do the scratch, I think we have a before photo of this piece being installed. There you go, that's before. So obviously we didn't do any sort of paint correction or anything like that on this car. And then when Chai just threw this piece of film on, interestingly enough, paint protection film can hide a lot of the imperfections in your paint. Do you want terrible paint? No, but if it has, you know, swirls and stuff like that, you can get away with just putting paint protection film on the car. And look at how much this is hidden all the paint swirls and not. So that looks pretty good. All right, so let's show them what self-healing is all about. I'm gonna let you do it because last time I did, I thought I might have gone too far. Now, self-healing means it can take a scratch and then we're gonna be able to heat it up and get the scratches out. Yep. But it's not armor. You can't go gouging with with a screwdriver and think it's going to be able to withstand that, right? So he's just going to do a light scratch. Imagine somebody brushing up on your fender or something like that. So just a light scratch. Okay, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. All right, so can you guys see that scratch there? There's lines of scratch right here. Hopefully you can see it.
Yep, you see it.
You see it? Okay, so I'm going to let you heat it up. So we just have a heat gun here. Whoa, look at that. There you go. And with just a little bit of heat, the scratch disappears. Now, some films out there, just with sunlight is enough to, prolonged exposure to sunlight will, it'll heal itself. Now, some folks have said, oh, well, all vinyl does that. That is not true, because I tried it on this temporary piece of vinyl here, and I did a scratch, and I heated up, and I heated up really well, and it did not self-heal. So that's something that actually works. I'm pretty impressed with that. Okay, so now that you've seen self-healing, let's see if we can't answer a couple of questions here. Let's see. Everyone's saying happy holidays, so happy holidays to you all. Time-wise, from Paula Magadia, how long does it take to apply PPF to the front bumper of, say, this 718?
So if I was to do it by freehand, do it in bulk, that can take up to 2 hours or 3. If it was a pre-cut, probably within an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big difference. Again, price difference, right?
Price difference.
Price difference, but then the outcome is completely different. Someone on here asked about what state of the paint should it be in when they bring the car to you?
So if it's a brand new car, it should already be clean and everything. There's no paint chips whatsoever. So most shops, well, not most shops, some shops, they'll suggest you to get paint correction done. So if there's any swirl marks or anything like that, it'll be all taken care of, and then you can put the film on top. It'll protect the paint, almost brand new, keeps it looking good. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, the nicer you bring it, the nicer it's going to look.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be perfect, because we just saw how this piece kind of hit a lot.
Yeah, if you have swirl marks, stuff like that, it'll hide it.
We had a question here, I can't find it again, but they were talking about, does PPF affect like the metallics in the paint?
No.
No, so it shows right through.
There's actually been some instances where it makes metallic paint look actually better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it gives it an extra depth.
Depth.
Yeah.
Okay, because you got 8 mils worth of clear.
Yeah.
Added to the car. Okay. And let's see, what else do we have here? So people are talking about, do you apply PPF to windows or windshields? Is that legal?
So now they have paint protection films especially made for windshields.
Okay, so
I'm gonna say
it's application specific. It's
application specific.
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, legal wise, I don't think I'll be able to tell.
Okay. Here's a question from Goody that I think is good. So say their car has been ceramic coated. Can you apply PPF to a ceramic coated car?
I'm gonna say it can be applied, but I would suggest against it, because ceramic coating, most ceramic coating actually works. It keeps stuff from adhering onto the paint, and that includes clear film too.
Yeah.
So it's better to not do ceramic coating before film.
Right, and actually this is a great little graphic here that talks about the difference between paint protection film and ceramic coating. Obviously paint protection being 8 mils thick, it's going to be much stronger defense to stopping rock chips. Ceramic coating typically has a much more hydrophobic surface to keep your car looking cleaner and stopping stains. And in fact, we'll talk a little bit about how some PPFs today incorporate ceramic coating into the PPF. Have you worked with that stuff?
Yeah, I have actually had. Yeah, a lot of new films, a lot of brands now, they offer it, and it actually works. It's very hydrophobic. It actually, keep bird guts and stuff like that from adhering onto the surface of the film. Yeah, it actually works.
It does work, okay.
Yeah, it actually works.
Now, the question for you is, I know a lot of our friends in the PCA, they've done wraps, but then they get like the traditional ceramic coating professionally installed on top of their wrap. Is that the same or is it different?
So the ceramic coating that comes on paint protection film is actually different.
Okay.
So the ceramic coating that you get installed actually will perform a lot better than the one that you can get on a film.
Okay, so it's a level of protection, it's a level of shine and hydrophobicity with a paint protection film, like if you didn't want to go the full-on ceramic coating afterwards. But still, if you do like the full-on ceramic coating afterwards, that is the ultimate protection.
Okay, that's the ultimate protection you can get, yep.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's see. We wanted to talk about, make sure we spent some time on choosing an installer. And of course, as I said earlier, I can't tell you how good Chai is. If you're in the DMV area, he's your guy. He's really good. And there's also others that you know, just talk to folks. The best thing that you can do is talk to people that have had their cars wrapped by someone, and you know, get their experience. As an installer, what would you suggest to folks about choosing an installer?
So, ask questions. All right, that's number one. Ask questions. Ask them if they can. Let them show you their work. You know, if they have a customer car inside the shop that's getting worked on now, ask to see it. You know, hopefully they have a panel done. Look at their work. Take a close look at it, and make sure it is what you want. If it's more than what you want, that's a bonus.
Yeah. So the other thing is, you know, time-wise, making sure whoever, you know, we none of us likes to be without our car. Right. So if you're doing, you said like 2 hours to do a freehand wrap on the bumper. If someone was looking to do the just front fenders, hood, and bumper, what kind of time should be allowed to do something like that?
So on average, that would take up between 6 to 8 hours. But
okay,
of
a
course,
day.
Yeah, in
Okay.
a day. So there's some shops that can do it a little bit faster, and some shops do it a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is one of the misconceptions a lot of people get, because this is a certain kind of artwork.
Mm-hmm.
You can't rush these things.
Oh yeah.
So on average, 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
If an installer requires more time,
Let them.
let them.
Let them. Never rush an artist. Never rush a cook.
Oh yeah.
You want them to enjoy what they're doing. Don't apply pressure, because they're going to cut corners, right?
Or cut your paint.
Or be like me and cut your paint. And again, I can't believe I just did that. But anyways, so that's just to do the front third of the car. Now, let's talk about the whole car, and I think that's going to vary depending on the car, right?
Oh yeah, that will vary a lot. Not every car is the same. Most whole cars you can do within, I'm gonna say, 2 to 3 days at the earliest. But I'm gonna say, to be on the safe side, 4 or 5 days. That should be for most vehicles.
Yeah.
Of course, trucks, SUVs, that can take even longer.
So let's walk around this car and kind of show people. If you guys have any other questions about choosing installer, fire them off while we walk around this 718 Spider, and we're just going to kind of lead into inspecting the work. And again, as I mentioned with this one, you know, coming to the edges, you have to look really close to see where the edges are. And they're all super clean, which is great. Now, if you look at this piece here, like I think you kind of hid the line around here. So just think about, if someone's doing this freehand, there's a lot of opportunities to mess up. So you want someone that is patient and do it right. And it's expensive to mess up too, right? Like if you cut it or cut too far or whatever, you know, replacing this big piece is expensive.
Yeah, it can get very expensive. And
So
then not to mention messing up the car itself too.
Right. So not only are you worried about that, but to prepare for all of this, like, are you taking headlights out? Are you taking stuff apart?
So that also comes into the pricing as well. So most cars, you'll be able to take the headlights out. You know, some cars, bumpers come off easily, badges, stuff like that. Anything that comes off readily, a lot of installers will take off without charging you.
Yeah.
But you know, some shops will charge you for even the littlest thing they take off. But for the cleanest installs, they would take.
Now, this might seem very simple, this area here, but I've seen some installs where this looks terrible, where they don't take the time to take the badge off, and they just basically like cut around it. And as you can see here, you must have taken this off and went all the way down into the recessed area because there's no seam here. There's no line.
On this one, I did take the badge off, and the film is actually underneath of it.
Right,
so
and
you
then
see
also
that.
when it gets dirty, dirt doesn't get caught on the edges either.
Oh yeah. There's no edge for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that can play into the cost with these is this is a big hood, right? Which requires a big roll of film.
Yeah.
And big rolls of film are expensive, and to do a full hood like this, I mean, that's a lot of places where you could possibly mess up. And I'm looking at this hood, and there's like no bubbles, no debris. I mean, you're working in a sterile, clean environment to be able to produce a final piece like this.
Yep.
And I think with vinyl wraps, you have, I guess, a little bit more room to mess up because the colors can hide things, and if it's dirty underneath, no one sees it.
Yeah,
there's color,
no one will see it.
But this is all clear. Everybody, your work is exposed to everything.
Oh yeah.
And things people don't think about is as you look down the side, Damon, when you're going around the mirrors here, some places you might have to take off the side mirrors to work here. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with this car, it's pretty involved to take this mirror off, so you decided to
Put a
seam. But if you look, Damon, where he hid the seam, no one will really see that. It's in between the mirror and the side of the car. So there is a seam there. Sometimes you have to put seams.
Yeah, so if there has to be a seam anywhere, I'll try my best to hide the seam like on a body line or stuff like that to make it less visible.
Right. And then I know I've seen you take door handles off before, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but a lot of cars will require you to take the door panel off, find your way and figure out how it's mounted, and then wrap it and then put it all back together.
Yeah, you gotta put it all back in together.
Again.
Yep.
So hopefully this is enlightening you all as to sort of the scope of work when you're asking people, oh, just wrap the whole car, because it is a lot. Another big piece here on the back of this Spider here, complete, no seams, amazing. And I think that's a true sign of an artist, is when you can do these huge pieces and have no seams at all. Seams are quicker, but if you want perfection, if you take pride in your car, no seams is where it's at. And probably one of the first things I ever saw you do that sort of made me take a deep breath is this brand new 718 Spider, or whatever car you were working with, you just took all the badges off. Like, you just took everything off.
Yep.
Because again, someone that's wrapping this car, you can wrap and just do like an oval cut or something like that, but it would look terrible. So what Chai did here is he removed the emblem, wrapped the entire bumper, and then carefully place the emblems back, and just to remember how to do that and where location. And again, choosing your installer is so important, because you're going to want somebody that is a perfectionist, as you would expect.
Oh yeah.
Porsche would do it. There you go. So let's take a look, and why don't you share with folks about how difficult it is to wrap, say, like that, the curve of the mirror versus something flat like this panel here.
So on mirrors, you can see how bulbous it is. If you look carefully, I did have to put a seam here. This is so I can put relief in the film itself. If I were to do this in one piece, it might look good on the first night, but when you come pick up the car, you'll have issues. That's one thing you gotta look at what shops do too. They'll try their best, they'll try to make everything look perfect. Somebody once told me it's paint protection film, not paint perfection film.
Right.
If they can make it look good, without causing any issues, perfect. That's your perfect thing right there. But if they try to make it perfect, you're gonna have issues down the road. And that is something you want to avoid. So that's why there's a seam right there, because of how this mirror is shaped. Now, of course, when you come to the hood, it's a perfectly flat panel. Even the fender is fairly simple as well. It's a big curve, so it's easy for the film to contour versus like the mirror. But the hood is pretty flat, pretty straightforward. There shouldn't be any issues with anyone doing a hood.
Now, someone on the chat asked about putting film on the headlights? I don't know if this one has it or not. Honestly, I can't even tell.
Yeah, I don't think I put. Yeah, so on newer cars,
Yeah.
You should not put film on newer headlights.
Because there's actually a non-reflective coating on a lot of those headlights, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that film,
When I put the film on it, even before I squeegee it down, before I tag it down,
yeah.
if I have to lift it up to re-wet it,
Oh, it's going to lift that coating. So for those of you that wear eyeglasses and you choose the AR coating, that's kind of what is on the headlights, and that coating is there to minimize glare and for whatever, just make it look good, I guess. But
it's actually to protect the headlight as well. I'm pretty sure you've seen like yellowed headlights and
Right.
stuff like that. How old headlights are all yellow and stuff. So the coating is meant to make the headlight stuff last longer.
Okay.
The factory they don't take in their mind that the owner is probably going to put clear film on it.
Yeah.
They don't think that. They put the coating on it. Yeah.
all right, but if your factory coating has worn off, that whatever that is, and then you decide to wet sand it and bring it back, and now you're just dealing with
The
just
raw plastic
just the
itself.
raw plastic, then it would be a good
Then
idea.
that would be ideal to put paint protection
Paint
film on.
protection on
Yep.
it. Got it. All right, so you talked about, someone had asked online, let me just get back here. In terms of longevity of these films, 5, 10-year warranties you hear about, what's it like to remove this stuff? Because they can get damaged, right? Like if you took this film and rubbed it against a garage door or another car, like it can ultimately scratch, and it needs to be replaced. How hard and what is the process to remove all that stuff?
So to remove the film, I want to say it's simple because I'm experienced in doing it, but to take the film off properly, you would use a steamer or a heat gun, and then the film should come off fairly easy.
Really?
Yep, very
You
cleanly.
say that for you.
Of course, I say that, as an experienced installer,
Yeah.
but
But there's one caveat with that, and that is the paint itself, right? So if you have a car that has original paint, a modern car with original paint, you wrap it, 5 years later, you peel it off, you do the correct process of steaming it or heating it, it should come off fairly easy. But if your car has been repainted, that's a different story.
yep, very different story. So if the body shop that repainted your panel that you had PPF, you want to hope they did a good job at their prep work. Because if they didn't, the moment you take that paint protection film off, you might be repainting that panel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it'll actually lift the paint off.
Yeah. So if you go to any shop, they should warn you about that before you get the paint protection film done.
Yeah.
They'll ask you if your car's been repainted. If it has, they'll tell you ahead of time. That's up to you.
So for those that have had, we were just talking to someone earlier today where they unfortunately hit a deer and they're going to have to get the front end of their car repainted, but they still want paint protection film to protect it from rock chips and stuff like that. So how do you, what's the protocol there?
So assuming the body shop did the best job they can do. So after they do their work, it's suggested that you wait at least 2 to 3 weeks, ideally 30 days before you get the paint protection film put on.
Let it fully cure.
Yep, let the paint fully cure. Otherwise, you can have bubbling issues with the paint and they'll show up.
Okay, so, but if they didn't prepare, I guess an average person won't really know if the body shop did a great job or not.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the
they're going to
unfortunate
want to
part,
wrap
yeah.
it, and then I guess the truth will be found 5 years down the road when you go to
take the
peel off
film
and whether or not the paint comes with it.
Yeah.
And that has to do with with the prep work and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
All right, so let me see here. We've got some questions. We've got a whole bunch here. So let's talk. Oh, here we go. Tom Kapakian. What's the most unusual vehicle or object you've been asked to wrap? Can you wrap my Vespa?
I wrapped a toolbox.
You wrapped a toolbox.
A snap-on toolbox.
Well,
Understandable because it's maybe a $40,000.
$40,000 toolboxes. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the toughest thing that you've ever wrapped?
I'm gonna say the fender of a Rolls Royce.
Fender of a Rolls Royce. Okay.
because of how it's shaped. It's a very hard body line, and it's not like two panels. It's one panel, but the way you got to stretch the film around it, I want to say that was the difficult
Yeah.
panel that I've worked with so far.
And the fact that it's a Rolls Royce and you don't want to mess it up.
Definitely that too.
All right, so we have a question from Dean Johnson. I'm wanting to wrap my entire vehicle. Half of it has been on since 2014. Should I remove the current wrap that's over 7 years old and start over, or just finish where they left off?
If you want to finish where they left off, I wouldn't suggest that because the old film has been on it for that amount of time. That film may have gotten a chance to yellow, even though you may not see it. If you continue on with the film for the rest of the car, you'll probably notice it.
You'll notice it, yeah.
Yeah. I've actually done a GT2 RS, I believe it was, recently, and yeah, that's a new car. It was only 2 years old, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I took the film on the front off. It was actually very yellow for
a 2-year-old film, and that car's probably garage kept too.
Yeah,
but it's still aged.
It's still aged. Either that, or it's just the quality of the film that it was.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
that
quality
too.
of the film. Okay, yeah. Here's a question from Ivan Avmarov. We talked about the disassembly of trim to install PPF, and installers are asking to remove mirrors, door handles, interior doors, and it makes him uncomfortable. So I would say, I'll answer this. If you're uncomfortable with the installer removing anything from your car, then just know that you might have to make some compromises, right, of whether or not there'll be seams.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. PPF is not forever. This is from NS. PPF is not forever. Realistically, how often should you pull off and replace PPF?
I'm gonna say, on average, I think a lot of people get rid of their cars before the film would need to be replaced. I'm gonna say, if you get 7 years out of it,
Uh-huh.
you got your money's worth.
You got your money's worth.
But that's just 7 years. Depending on how well you take care of the car, if it's garage kept or you drive it every day, how well you wash the car and stuff like that, that film can last a lot longer.
Yeah. So some of us that have factory installed vinyl pieces, like I remember the G-body cars that have the paint protection film right in front of the rear tires, like stone guards, I think is what you officially call them. Vinyl, they've been on there a while, they're brittle, they're cracked. People want to replace those. How do you attack that piece?
So I'll take the old film off, and I can.
You say that like it's just you just peel it off.
Rip it off. Yeah.
Because you know it doesn't. I would
You'd have
go
to
for it. It's like little pieces come off.
Yeah, you have to use the heat gun or a steamer to sit there and peel it off. Just however it comes off, you gotta suffer.
That's the patience that Chai has that I do not have, because he'll sit there and stare at the same panel for like 4 hours and just be happy-go-lucky Chai.
I mean, don't forget, I'll probably be screaming on the inside too, but
all right.
it is what it is.
All right, let's see. So we have some interesting photos of bad installs. Hopefully I'm
like
not
this.
putting too much pressure. So why don't you take a look at that and tell us what's wrong there?
It's very obvious that you see the gap that's in between the film right there. That's very unsightly.
Yeah, so that looks like either a pre-cut kit that when they put it all together, they didn't match up the
that's definitely a pre-cut, but that could have been a good design of a pre-cut. That is mostly installer error.
Okay, so that pre-cut piece, just go back. That pre-cut piece, you could have made that look better because you can still manipulate and get those seams closer together. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next please. Oh, someone didn't want to replace a whole sheet of film is what I see.
Yep, that is a freehand cut, but that is a bad freehand cut.
So they cut it short, and whatever piece that was, they didn't want to replace that whole piece. So they said, maybe they won't notice. Next. Oh, what is that?
So that is what we call a finger. So if the film wasn't stretched enough in a certain spot where there should be just the right tension, the film is going to pucker up just like that and give you a little tiny finger.
Oh, and it looks like as the car aged, water and dirt and debris got into that finger part, and now it looks
Now-
terrible.
Yeah.
And then the bottom on the bottom side looks like it must have had
The edge
extra
will-
adhesive or something,
The
or maybe
edge-
that's the edge.
Yeah, that's the edge of the film itself.
Oh, the edge is lifting.
So because of the little black trim right there, you
Yeah.
can't really get the film back there. So unfortunately, that's where the film ends.
Yeah.
But if it was a bad installer, they won't make sure every edge is sealed, and then you end up getting that.
Ooh, what is that?
That is probably a 20-year-old film.
Oh, so that's the one where they're just doing not even a third. That's like an eighth of the hood.
Yeah.
An old school wrap, and I guess back in the day they thought that was a good idea, but I'm sure when you peeled that off, you had two different shades of silver, and
And you'll be having fun taking that film off.
yeah, that's another cut short.
Yep.
Oh. What are we looking at here?
Oh yeah, this is the one I was showing earlier.
Yeah,
So that black line right there
yeah.
is a Sharpie line.
That's a Sharpie line?
So there might have been a seam there, or they're trying to hide something. That's a Sharpie line. They put Sharpie right on top
Because
of
that
it.
that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I didn't do it right, so I will cover it up with a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and this I can see why it happens, because that's a pretty tricky place. So what do you do in a tight spot like that to make sure that doesn't happen?
So there is one solution that I use called adhesive promoter. That to me is a tight little area. So what an adhesive promoter would do, it will help the film adhere properly, so to help the film stay down. Otherwise, if there's a lot of tension in a certain spot, the film will lift up.
Oh, so that there's a solution that you can apply to make it even more tacky,
Yeah.
and it doesn't change the clarity of the film or anything like that?
Nope, it does not.
Oh, that's a little trick. So that's one where I got to give him props for kind of evenly cutting it, right?
Yep, that's
pretty
that's
even.
a pre-cut.
Oh, because it's a pre-cut. That's why.
Well,
it's
I'm
even.
assuming it's a pre-cut. It looks.
Yeah,
like a
I would say
perfect
that.
cut.
No one can freehand that like
Yeah.
that. Well, maybe you can, but I
Yeah,
can't.
maybe, yeah.
Okay, so that's a pre-cut. Yeah, so that's a third hood.
Yeah.
Yeah. More. Why in the heck? They didn't have a wide enough roll. Why would you have a seam there? That makes.
No, that's part of the partial front. That's the
Oh,
unfortunate
okay.
part
So
of the edge of the
they're
film
only
you
doing
see.
that leading
Yeah.
edge. I gotcha. Wow. So none of that you just saw was Chai's work, which is why we showed you, and that's key. Let's see, what else did we have here? People were talking about. We're not talking about brands specifically today, although we're sponsored by Suntech. But as an installer, when you're choosing a PPF to work with, what are you looking for the film to do in terms of performance and ease of installation?
So pretty much what a customer would ask me, you know. So a lot of customers would want the film to outperform. So they want the protection. You know, they'll read on the internet about the hydrophobic of it, the self-healing part. So that's how I choose the brand of film that I want to use, just so I can offer it to my customer. It'll be something that they want. So that's pretty much the biggest factor.
Okay. And are there, today we're talking about going everywhere and there's delivery delays and stuff like that. Has there been an issue with paint protection film supply in the last year or two?
Yeah, because of COVID, there has been. Some brands, they're having troubles getting film in stock. But for the most part, it's been okay. Right now, with vinyl wraps, that has become an issue.
Really? Vinyl wraps is harder.
Yeah, vinyl wraps, there's a material shortage for it.
Okay. Speaking of vinyl wrap, can you share with the folks, like for example, if you wrapped an entire car in paint protection film versus wrapping an entire car with vinyl film, what's the price difference?
So because of the nature of the vinyl, and also competition around,
Yeah.
to do a whole car, you're probably only looking at a couple thousand, 3,000. There are some shops that'll charge way more than that, but paint protection film, it'll be a lot more. It's more labor intensive.
Yeah. So vinyl, whole car, about $3,000, let's say on average. A paint protection, full car, you're saying 5, 6, or
Yeah, it can be double or triple that amount.
double or triple amount.
Yeah.
And again, it's how involved you want the installer to go in terms of hiding lines, taking things off, and making it as perfect as possible. So we did have another question here. We talked about UV. Oh, here's one. So people order their cars from their dealer. Car comes in, and of course the dealer has the opportunity to upsell you on a paint protection film for your car. Should you take them up on that, or not?
You would have to ask them how are they sourcing the work. If it's a shop that's nearby that's offering the job, I'm
Do
going
some research on them.
do some research on that shop.
Yeah.
Of course, the amount of money you want to pay too. If I would say if the dealership offered, no, you'd be paying a lot more at a dealership than going to that shop itself.
Well, it depends on the dealer.
Yeah, it
right?
depends on the dealer as well.
Some dealers just simply pass through the cost, or some dealers will have an upcharge.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what you were talking about is knowing who's actually going
who's actually
to
putting it
do
on.
the install. Because if they're doing it in-house at the dealer, that's could be good, because you can, one, meet that person or see the work that they've done. If it's a third party, a local shop that they take your car to, or someone that they bring in, I think it's important to find out, who's doing the work and see examples of the work. It's just like going to a body shop, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have great body shops in the area, but sometimes it depends on who's holding the paint sprayer that day too. And if it's
Yeah.
always the same guy, then you kind of know it's going to be good. But some shops, it's tough to keep people on, and they rotate through people, and it may or may not be a good paint job. So I would guess it'd be kind of the same thing.
Yeah, almost the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. Well, folks, look at that. We are just about at the top of the hour. There's a couple of things I wanted to make sure I mention. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Our next show will actually be December 29th. So we have one more show for the year if you'd like for us to do that. We're going to be covering dash cams and stereo upgrades. For those of you that plan to join us at Works Reunion Amelia in March of 2022, registration opened today, so make sure you do that. And also, I'm very happy to announce a new pilot program that we are launching next week, and that is Porsche Club Insider. It's a podcast that's produced by us here at PCA. It's going to be on, Damon, I'm looking at you, it's going to be on Apple, it's going to be on Amazon Prime, it's going to be Spotify, it's going to be on YouTube, and hopefully you will enjoy this pilot podcast. Give us your feedback on that, and if you guys like that, we'll continue to do those just like we do Tech Tactics Live. And with that, I want to wish you all a wonderful holiday. We'll see you on the 29th. Thank you for watching. Chai, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Pleasure being with you.